It's time for Supply Chain Now Radio, sponsored by Apex Atlanta and Talent Stream. Broadcasting live from the supply chain capital of the country, Atlanta, Georgia, Supply Chain Now Radio spotlights the best in all things supply chain. The people, the companies, the technologies, the best practices, and the critical issues of the day. Now, here are your hosts.
All right. Good afternoon and welcome to our latest segment. This is our fifth segment broadcast live today down in Savannah, Georgia, one of the logistics hubs of the world, which is terrific. Terrific to be back. Scott Luton is my name. I'm your host, along with Cherie Darian. Good afternoon, Cherie.
Good afternoon, Scott.
We are broadcasting live today, not only from Savannah, but we're at the World Trade Center and the Savannah Economic Development Authority, right?
Yes.
CEDA, right?
CEDA. Mm-hmm.
CEDA, where big deals are taking place right as we talk here. So great to be back here live on Supply Chain Now Radio. Before we get started and before we introduce our featured guest, I want to say a big welcome to our listeners. Glad to have you with us on the show here today. Quick note, if you're catching this podcast on replay and you want to listen next time live, go to supplychainnowradio.com. We've got a big red button at the top. Raise your hand if you like the big easy button, right? That's what we want. Click on the red button, follow the instructions. We'll get you plugged in live to Supply Chain Now Radio and all the things we're up to. And you can listen to all of our bad dad jokes live as they take place. So again, a good afternoon to my co-host Cherie Darian. Cherie is an author, speaker, coach, former banking executive, nonprofit entrepreneur.
Yes.
And EBW, which she's going to tell us more about in a second. EBW chapter director, EBW 2020 chapter director, and she does not get any sleep at night. So it's a pleasure to co-host with Cherie. She is a veteran of the airwaves, and she hosts a radio show every Thursday. Courageous Conversations on what channel, Cherie?
It is Courageous Conversations with Cherie. You can't leave that part out, Scott.
Oh.
And it's on WRUU. It's community radio here in Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM.
Awesome. And I've listened into a couple of those. Very impressive, very neat stories. No-nonsense stories. You strike me as a no-nonsense person, right? No fluff.
No.
So it's a pleasure to co-host with Cherie on Supply Chain Now Radio this afternoon. So who are we hosting here today? We've got a special guest, Dr. Suman Niranjan, Director of Global Logistics and International Business Center at Savannah State University. Hey, good afternoon again, Dr. Niranjan.
Good afternoon. Very, very welcome to everybody.
Glad you are here, and we're excited to talk supply chain with you. As we were saying kind of in the pre-show warm-up, it's always neat to talk supply chain with folks that get it, know it, that can do it in their sleep, and they're interacting on a daily basis with their finger on the pulse with the next generation of supply chain professionals that are going to be doing big things in the years and decades to come. So thanks for making some time.
Absolutely.
So first off, let's ask the tough questions first. What did you do anything exciting during Thanksgiving?
Well, I had lots of catch up to do because it was kind of very busy over the entire semester. So I was just sitting home and then just catching up with all the research stuff that I hadn't been able to get a chance to work on during the semester. And that's usually how it is if you're, especially in a teaching school.
So you worked throughout the holiday?
Yes, I did. I mean, of course, a couple of days I had to take my kids out.
Right.
But other than that, we were off the whole week. But however, there's always tons of stuff to do.
Sounds like a dedicated man.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Did you at least take some time for some turkey?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Actually, the Friday before the Thanksgiving break, which was I believe 18th, I guess, I took my daughter out. I mean, I went to my daughter's school and they had the Thanksgiving lunch. She kind of was expecting that for the last 3 years. This was finally the day that I showed up.
Awesome.
So she was very happy about that.
That's special. Very special. Very good. Well, let's dive into talking with you about supply chain. How long have you called Savannah home?
It's about 9 years.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my 9th year in Savannah. So I joined Savannah State University in 2010. So it's
Okay.
about 9 years.
What brought you to Savannah?
Well, the job, of course. I was in Dayton, Ohio. That's where I did my doctorate in engineering, very specifically in industrial and systems engineering, and supply chain was my focus area. I graduated in 2008 from Wright State in Dayton, Ohio. And then I got a job in upstate New York. It's called Binghamton. It's a really small town, State University of New York. I worked there for a couple of years. And I was a visiting faculty there for supply chain. And then I was still searching for a regular full-time, not a visiting position, but
Right.
a regular assistant professor position. And then I ended up coming down here.
Well, so upstate New York, I hear, is a lot different than the New York that all of us think of when we think New York City, right?
Right. It's not New York City. It's about 3 hours north of New York
Okay.
City. So it's still New York State.
Yeah.
It's called Binghamton, though. And
Cold.
it's cold, of course, of course. It also has a tag name called the Seattle of the East.
Really?
Yeah. It's like you can count the number of days in a year that's actually sunny.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Man. Ready to move up there tomorrow?
No.
Sheree? Me neither.
No.
All right. So the Global Logistics and International Business Center at Savannah State University. What the heck is that?
So just to give you a brief history about what it is and how that all of that started. So in 2011, the senior administration, the president as well as the provost at Savannah State University, they wanted to have a logistics focus at Savannah State University. Back then, we didn't have anything. We were just operating traditional majors out of the College of Business. And they wanted an initiative so that we can get started with logistics, not so much as of international business, but they wanted the logistics. The international business kind of happened later. So there was a seed money that we received, which is an internal seed money, about $160,000 over the course of 2 years from 2011 to 2013, which actually jump-started this center. So myself, along with a few other colleagues at Savannah State University, we founded this particular center. But instead of just focusing on the logistics portion, we also mixed the international business into it.
Right.
And together it became Global Logistics and International Business. Actually, it goes even further. It's Global Logistics International Business Education and Research Center.
Wow.
And it's acronymed as GLIBER Center of Excellence. So that's what it is named as, and that's what we call. We don't usually refer to that full name,
Right.
but we just call it as a GLIBER Center. And people, especially students at Savannah State, know when we say GLIBER Center, so they kind of associate to that.
So I could call it G. Lieber Center.
You can call it as GLIBER Center.
G. Lieber Center. Okay, good. Very good.
Right. And we started out we didn't have any major or as such as part of the BBA program, but it was just a functioning center in which we did lots of activities, which we're still doing currently. A lot of those activities, case competition, trying to do the research day, which are our two big events, and these kind of happen every year after year, and has been happening since the 2011, the initial year that we actually started the center. And then from there on, it just took off. And we have about now we also have a major which is called as GLIB, so Global Logistics and International Business. That's the actual major. BBA students graduate from the GLIB major. That was submitted to Board of Regents in 2013, and we were approved in 2013. So we started accepting students in 2014. So it's still a relatively new major, I would say. Over the course of the last 4 years, we have been able to attract about 75 students.
Was we're getting a call from a listener here. They're dying to pose a question to Dr. Niranjan. Hey, is the major, was it part of the plan to stand up the center and then to roll out the major. Is that
right? So the idea was to see how responsive the student body at Savannah State would be to this new major, and we had no doubts in our mind that this was something that was really important, especially Savannah being a port city, having so much historical importance about logistics, being the hub for railroad and maritime. It only makes sense to have a logistics major at a HBCU campus like Savannah State University. So we said that should probably attract a lot of people. But the problem was a lot of folks, a lot of students in Savannah State, especially the undergrad students, they had no clue about what logistics or supply chain is. If you talk to them, they would say, is it something to do with organizing an event, or is it something to do with the driving the trucks?
So I know, Sari, you got some interesting observations.
I did. It's interesting that you said that. I just wrote a note to ask you, would you highly encourage supply chain logistics to be introduced to students at an earlier level before college?
Absolutely, yes. And as a matter of fact, we are actually doing that. So one of the aspects that we focus on in the GLM Center is outreach programs. And we outreach to both middle school as well as high school students, not just for transportation and logistics, but also for data analytics, because we think the combination is very important because they both feed on each other. And at the same time, those are our main focus points that most of the students starting out very young, especially middle school and high school students, they have, again, no idea about what we're talking about. And educating them, promoting them at a very early age is definitely impactful. We believe that students will be able to make better choices and decisions by the time they reach the freshman year.
I'm with you. You know, one of the things that we've been doing with Supply Chain Now Radio and Apex Atlanta and Talent Stream and some of other partners is getting out in elementary schools with a program called Supply Chain 101. In fact, Bill was instrumental in helping us come down here and do it at the Tybee Island Maritime Academy. And basically, we go in and spend an hour, usually with third, fourth, or fifth graders, and just to your point, Dr. Niranjan, just illustrate what end-to-end supply chain is. And you know, we use chocolate bar examples and lemonade examples, and we walk through at a very high level what the supply chain's behind all that Halloween candy that we're probably all trying to get rid of, right?
Yes.
Right. But the awareness piece is such a big part of the battle in solving the war for talent that's going on. What were you about to share something else, Shereen?
Just back to the point of the outreach, I was just interested in knowing, so for our listening audience, what type skill sets should we be looking for in our students earlier?
So most people, when they think about logistics, they do not associate themselves with quantitative skills. So the quantitative skills, especially the mathematical modeling that you need to make decisions in real world situations, are extremely important. And you need to think logistics as a field that not only embraces just the business side of it, but also the engineering side of it, also the social sciences side of it. So it has a lot of STEM inherently hidden inside the logistics that students think that maybe logistics is something not for me. It's probably doesn't have that kind of skill. So there are two types of student that you would probably think. One type of student would probably think that maybe I can get away into this field of logistics without knowing any math or any kind of skills in the math. And another student who is probably high achieving student would probably think that logistics is not for me. It's probably for people who probably don't have much appreciation for math. So I think that's a misconception.
I'm with you.
And I have actually done a doctorate in engineering and with focus in supply chain, which obviously speaks volumes about the number of quantitative classes I had to take in order to get to that level. And in reality, most of these organizations, including Georgia Ports Authority or any of these large companies, even small companies, they all need some sort of quantitative skills at a very early age and show how the application of that quantitative relates to logistics. And that's when they would probably say, oh, okay, this is how math could be used in so and so. And that's the conversation that I would like to have with the kids.
Yep.
And and they understand once you give them enough awareness that this is not what we think.
So let me ask you this question: if you just had to take a rough estimate in terms of the students that are part of the GLib, the Global Logistics International Business Major, right? If you had a breakdown between male and female, what would that be? You think?
I would say maybe 60-40.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe,
male.
Yeah, 60% male and 40% female.
Okay.
It's not awfully bad in terms of the disproportionate that you're thinking. Again, the part of the fact that women in logistics, the fact that they may think that they should probably work outside the office or in outdoors may sometimes deter them. But in reality, there are so many jobs that are still desk jobs that the women can definitely opt for, and it's something that they all should be pursuing, especially the math modeling that I was talking about. It includes using simulation, and you could actually be sitting on a computer and running a simulation model to model the port of Savannah and improve their operations and efficiency. So that's something that I think they should think just beyond just saying that maybe this has some kind of a stereotype attached to it.
Right.
It's not.
So, Cherie, I know you're passionate about empowering women, and certainly we're kindred spirits on the value of diversity and diversity of thought, and diversity of background, and all of that. How can we attract more women into the supply chain field and supply chain education programs? How can we make that 50-50?
I was just very good segue there, Scott. I was just thinking about that as far as those specific roles. Of course, as women, we're still mothers as well, and so taking care of our children is very important, or being there for our families. So, in this very high technology-driven society that we live in today, I imagine, and you please correct me if I'm wrong, Doctor, that a lot of or some of these jobs could be home-based jobs.
A lot of them can actually be home-based jobs. Again, it may be a culture within the industry. Because we know that in IT sector, in information technology sector, if you're doing a software job, there are lots of women who are actually working from home, and it sort of has become a norm or a standard there that 3 days you can work from home and 2 days you can go to the office. But maybe not that much of an evolution probably happens in logistics. But I think in the future, I think that there's going to be a lot more startup companies which are going to be focusing on logistics with the software aspect, which will then allow for women to actually seamlessly get integrated into that, where they can work from home. And not just women, even men. I mean, they also like to sometimes work from home because of the non-flexibility that maybe the spouse is actually working full-time and cannot get work from home. So I think definitely, yes.
Yeah, I think we need to definitely consider that because, again, a lot more jobs are remote today. So that would be very, very helpful to increase that number and make it.
Right. But don't get me wrong, there are a lot of jobs that are that you actually have to be on the field and you have to do it. So it's kind of obvious that those kinds of jobs, you have to be there.
Yeah.
But however, a lot of newer jobs that are being data-driven, digitally oriented, or digitization of the existing things that are happening doesn't require you to physically be there. So you could still.
Well, another way that women can certainly take a seat at the table and be a part of this movement is, again, launching those startup technology business. So that would be one way of increasing that as well.
Yeah, great point. In fact, our last guest on the previous segment, Ramsey Khalidi, was talking about part of what they're doing is providing more affordable manufacturing sites, right? So that the startups can find space to operate, which is so important,
like
right?
An incubator or something.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think one of the initiatives that the state government has taken is to actually zone a particular area within Savannah and encourage IT in logistics. I think I saw it in news a few months ago that there would be an IT corridor or a space here in Savannah, but this would be subsidized towards logistics industry. So IT in logistics.
Yes.
So companies that are developing warehouse distribution management softwares, or companies that are making transportation management softwares, or even any kind of tools to help the workforce from the IT side. I think they're going to subsidize for those companies to come start up and invest in Savannah.
Yes.
Absolutely. In fact, Dr. Niranjan, we're in the midst of one of the, let me make sure I get this right, Savannah Logistics and Technology Corridor Task Force.
Got it.
Bill Stankevich, who has been with us here today and one of our co-hosts through previous segments. Some of the previous segments today, we talked about what the task force is up to, and while the corridor that you're referring to has been stood up through state resolutions, and I'm not an expert of what the State House is doing, the next step is getting the funding, and what was Keith Fletcher told us earlier this morning, it's very, they're not after the $100 million that Augusta got to stand up the cybersecurity, big, huge project there. It's a portion of that, but more exciting, and I think really exciting, especially someone in the education community, is they're looking to create 4,000 high-paying tech jobs as a result of, as one of the results of what this task force and what the corridor would provide. So that is really cool because not only does that provide opportunity for people here, but it provides opportunity for folks coming in here, and hopefully with it will be investment in companies and innovation.
Yes.
Right. Opportunities for all.
Right. And I also think that Bryan County, as well as Bryan County is where I think Richmond Hill is, and then Effingham County, they both have now identified areas or places for developing these logistic parks. And that's only going to help the industry grow because it's going it's going beyond Savannah. It's going beyond the Chatham County that we've always talked about as the port city.
Yep.
So interesting to know, Doctor, where do you see yourself, say 5 years from now? You're here teaching good cohort or students that comes through Savannah State University, but what would be your role? What do you desire your role to be as this particular industry grows?
So I think there are lots of opportunities for the College of Business and Savannah State in general to, of course, increase their enrollment in this particular spectrum with offering Nexus degree programs, which is an initiative that the Board of Regents has started, where you package it as a small certificate program, which could be completed in several weeks to maybe several months, and you can package it however you want. So I think that with the influx of a lot of people who are going to be coming to work in these warehouses and distribution centers, or the indirect jobs that are being created through the deepening of ports, I think a lot of them would probably be working on the ground. Like, for example, they may just have a high school diploma, and they are probably working 40, 50 hours a week. So in order to capture these non-traditional students, you have to come up with these certificates so that they can get educated first. They know more about what they're doing, so that they may be able to get a desk job and move up the ladder into the positions that they're envisioning. So you want to target not just the traditional students, but the non-traditional students who would probably then become your traditional students. As you know that nationwide, the high school graduates are decreasing. So that is going to have a severe impact on a small school like Savannah State. So we have to think outside the box and attract more non-traditional students. And I think in the next 5 years, we should have enough of these professional degree programs, like how Georgia Tech is actually offering.
Right.
But one of the things that I know that Georgia Tech's programs are expensive. So they're expensive. I think the rates are published. So some folks may not afford that.
So you're talking about creating a pipeline.
Creating a pipeline, right? Creating these folks, attracting them first to come to the school, trying to educate them about some short-term courses, and then getting them into the program on a part-time basis or a fully online basis. And
Makes
I think
sense.
that's where it needs to move towards.
And also creating a pipeline, expanding the reach, diversifying the types of students that come into not just your program, but all the programs.
All the programs, yes.
And really providing that opportunity to families that haven't had the chance to have college graduates. I mean,
Exactly.
and we can all probably have our own personal examples of that. So it's admirable what you're doing, what the program's doing. So how is the global the GLM Center, right? Right?
GLM.
GLM.
Yep.
GLM.
You got it.
How is it interacting with the local and regional business community?
So one of the signature programs that the College of Business conducts every year is called as Evening with Business Professionals. Mm-hmm. So this is our signature event, which actually is a 3-day event. It ends or concludes with an evening with business professionals. The first couple days is when the folks from the industry are invited to come to the classrooms. Specifically, we have a list of companies that come to this event. And every year by year, we are seeing increasing number of companies participating, especially from logistics domain. So it started out with 2 or 3 companies. Now we're probably close to like about 10 companies, and we want to keep that increasing over the coming years so that more and more representatives from these companies come talk directly to the students in the classroom, and then they introduce themselves, talk about the company, and then they go away, of course. And on the last day, on the evening when there's the dinner, and there's an informal conversation with these representatives from these companies, the students get a chance to talk to them. The potential employers get a chance informally to chat with the students. That, I think, is a great exposure for the students, and they all come up dressed up formally, so they come up with their best. They're excited about it because traditionally over the years, this event has been going on for many years. We have always seen a good number of students getting jobs from this. They don't carry resumes and go, but they just make a conversation, and then they follow up later on, which I think is a great opportunity. No pressure on both the employer or the student, but it's an informal setup. That is one way that we chip into our GLM Center taps into that resource, because it's a college level event, and we try to identify these companies and provide the list to the college so that they can then contact these companies and then get them on board. That's one.
Let me ask you a question about that. Have you seen, has the business community really engaged and come out on campus and been? Have you seen a lot of response to this program?
Well, I think that there is a lot of to be precise, I think about 45 companies came in last year. This year we had about 30 plus companies come in and visit during the evening with business professionals. It's always been a great event for the college and for the Savannah State University in general, because we kind of planned that a few months in advance because it's our signature event. We want to kind of do a good job for not just for the college, but also for the kids.
It's interesting because I actually attended on behalf of the Small Business Assistance Corporation 2 years in a row. And I was surprised to hear you say that the number actually decreased. It seemed like the room was full this year, more so than last year, but very rewarding. The students, the conversations were amazing. I walked away with a handful of resumes. Many of them actually followed up and reached back out to me. We actually had an intern on board from Savannah State as well, so they got to get real life experience too from it. So I think it's a very beneficial opportunity.
Teaching students the art of follow up and the value of follow up. I mean,
networking.
And networking. Those simple lessons that are simple to many of us, we all had to learn those at some point in our career. So to train students or to coach students on that now while they're still undergrad, that's invaluable. So Dr. Niranjan, for companies that may be listening to us or maybe listening to a replay, if they want to participate in the evening with business professionals, who can they reach out to?
So there is a contact information. If they just type in GLM, which is G-LIB for boy, E for English, and R for Robert, GLM, and say Savannah State in Google, that will take you, the first link will take you to the GLM Center's page, and there is a contact information there. You could just directly reach out to the contact information there, and we will provide you with more information about the upcoming evening with business professionals. Or the company can also directly reach out to the College of Business Administration Dean's office, and they will be more than happy to provide with whatever information necessary for the company to participate. It's I don't think there is any cost involved with it, so it's just their time commitment to come down to the evening with business professionals.
Great. We'll see if we can't look up a good number and a specific email maybe for businesses that may be listening and say, hey, I want to be part of that.
Right.
Because that's having been a part of similar events, and of course Cherie's been a part of this one a couple of times. There's businesses that want to meet and trying to figure out effective ways of filling the jobs they have opening with talented people.
That's right.
Okay. So along these lines, let's kind of shift gears a little bit. Let's talk broadly about the world of supply chain. So, when we look back at 2018, let's say we get past the college football playoff and Clemson Tigers pull one off, right, Cherie? And we
Go
move.
Tigers.
That's right, go Tigers. And we're moving into January, February, March of 2019, and we look back at 2018 with a little bit of perspective. What do you think are going to be some of the biggest supply chain stories from 2018?
So I think probably everybody's familiar with this as well. Amazon, as you know, it's such a big online e-retailer, has had a tremendous impact on the general retail industry, especially brick and mortars. Stores like JCPenney, Sears, you hear every day in the news about stores shutting down. And Savannah is not new as well, because I think the stores around here are also shutting down soon. So that has been a tremendous impact. It's not just a one-year effect, but it has been there for a while when Amazon has been ruthless about their pricing and their strategy, and even using supply chain by eliminating all the folks in the middle, right? So the brick and mortar, especially the physical presence stores, have now started to think a little more smarter in a way to tackle this problem head on by moving away from this multi-channel distribution concept in which online and the regular brick and mortar store function in different silos. Now they're combining them together to provide a seamless customer experience. We call that as omnichannel distribution. And this omnichannel distribution has been there, talked about in the literature and supply chain for many years. But however, it really is taking off now with a lot of brick and mortar retail companies, wherein you want a customer coming in to a retail store, but the product not available, but then you can order directly there from online, which ships to your home. So you're in the retail store, but you're shipping the product that you want, and it comes to your home, and vice versa. You're at home, and then you order a product online, and then that ships to the store, and then you go pick up at the store, and you can return at the store. And all of this is happening through one backbone system for warehouse and distribution management system, rather than multiple systems functioning for different purposes. That way, the stock is accounted for in one place. The warehouses and distribution centers become more heterogeneous, trying to cater to not only the online, but also to the brick and mortar stores at the same time. These things take time for change, because there's billions of dollars of investment going into it. So it has been a major impact. So it's not just Amazon, but Alibaba or Buy. Yeah. So any of these online retail stores have no physical presence, but then how do we take the niche that a physical presence can actually now take it head on, tackle head on from these e-retailers? I think that's one of the things that has improved over the last years. We will see stores shutting down, but some of the other stores, that, especially like Walmart, has taken this problem head on. You can see it, that they've been able to sustain. They've been able to take the hit from Amazon because of this omni-channel distribution. And we're seeing more and more of the physically present stores like Target taking this head on. And omni-channel distribution seems to be the one concept that you can reflect back.
So 2018, in your opinion, it was kind of although omni-channel's been around for a while, 2018 was a big year where it became more prevalent.
Right. I would say that more and more companies are looking at it positive, and they're actually implementing them. It might have been in the process of implementing several years, because it takes several years to implement that. But however, I think it's probably coming to light now in this particular year. The other thing that, again, away from this particular omni-channel concept that I want to talk about, is such a strong economic growth that we had in 2018. So we've seen the economy flourish, which has also caused some problems, if surprisingly, if you think about supply chain industry, because it has pushed the demand on the products upwards and has caused capacity issues on the transportation industry. And the transportation industry hasn't been able to catch up with that capacity. As a result of which, you are seeing a lot of price shocks. The normal commodity products and its price has gone up, and then customers are in a little bit of shock about that. And that's another thing that you can think about reflecting back on 2018.
So we're going to have you back on the program. We're at our window here already, Dr. Niranjan, and it feels like in so many ways we've just kind of scratched the surface with everything that you've got a finger in this and a thumb in this. I'd love to have you back on to talk about your outreach programs, and we will. And one other topic we couldn't get to today was talking about for the students that you're teaching and leading and guiding and coaching that are looking to get into supply chain. What are some of the things that you're sharing with them in terms of best practices? However, I would argue we've uncovered a couple: networking and follow-up, and that works regardless of the industry you're trying to break into. So one final question for you. What's your bold prediction for 2019 in the world of supply chain?
So I was thinking about a lot of technology-related things, especially one of the things that I already mentioned in earlier to you all, that the startup companies, we would see more and more startup companies in this spectrum, especially technology-oriented IT-based logistics companies. You would probably see coming out more in 2019, I believe, which is really good. And the industry needs startups so that the industry can thrive. And apart from that, I also think that there's lots of opportunities of taking things which are related to analytics and digitization of products, and combining that along with the mainstream supply chain. Has been there now for 2-3 years that we talk about all these new technologies like blockchain. We talk about Internet of Things. We talk about big data. We would see more and more of this becoming prevalent. And lastly, to leave you all with a note, I think the autonomous vehicles would have a big impact on the industry. Oh, I forgot one other very important thing. The maritime industry has to actually move on with this fuel change to an ultra low sulfur diesel product in 2020. Right now, they are using a high sulfur content fuel, and the switch is going to have a tremendous impact on supply chain, at least short term, because they would be now competing with the rail as well as the motor vehicles that are using ultra low sulfur diesel, which will cause a shortage of that fuel and temporary increase in prices. And who is it that going to bear those prices? It's the end consumer, right? Because the prices are going to increase up all the spectrum until they figure out a solution for that, and then the refineries catch up with the capacity.
Wow.
Well, I hate to finish on doom and gloom there, Dr. Niranjan, but no, we're going to have you back, and maybe we have you back halfway through the 2019 year, and we reflect on the first 6 months and talk about some of the predictions and talk about some of the great work again that y'all are doing. Dr. Suman Niranjan, Director of Global Logistics in the International Business Center, GLIBR Center at Savannah State University. And to our audience, to learn more, one generic link we'll pass along to learn more about Savannah State University. I'm sure you can find the GLIBR Center portal or site within this next URL, but check out savannahstate.edu, and I'm sure we can get you connected with the Evening of Business Professionals. And better yet, if you're a listener, if you're listening to the podcast or the live version and you can't find what you're looking for, send us a note to info@glm.edu, apexatlanta.org, and we will make sure to get you connected with Dr. Niranjan and get you on campus interacting with the next generation. So thank you for spending time with us. Did you have one more thought?
No, thank you so much. I was just thanking everybody who is listening, and please do contact us if you need any sort of information or any sort of help on issues related to logistics and international business.
Well, we admire your passion and your service for doing what you're doing, you're helping the next generation. Again, to our listeners, that was Dr. Suman Niranjan with Savannah State University. I want to thank Dr. Niranjan for joining us. And thank my wonderful co-host, Miss Cherie Darian. It was a pleasure to co-host today's episode, this segment.
Pleasure's
and
all
looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely.
To our listeners, so long from Savannah, GA, and we hope to see you next time on Supply Chain Now Radio.